something that we pride ourselves on this show is not getting sucked into political talk at all. So you would not have to worry about us covering topics such as like Hegseth stating that, quote, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now, end quote, new quote, no more division, distraction, or gender delusions. You know, we wouldn't cover stuff like him issuing new directives that will raise physical standards for everyone in uniform to a quote male level. We wouldn't cover the talk of toughening grooming standards. Him saying that he doesn't want to see quote no more fat generals around Pentagon, which is great. And like this is like the quality that you can really expect from this show. Like, you know, we're not going to cover, you know, stuff where he would say stuff, you know, quote, no more beardos, right? Um, the era of unacceptable appearance is over. So these are things that you don't have to worry about us covering it because everyone covers that. And also, you know, him saying, quote, simply put, if you do not meet the male level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession. So, like, we wouldn't cover stuff like that. But if that was something that we would cover, Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
So
as someone who used to be in the military, there's a lot here that was
again,
said.
for anybody who's watching this on YouTube later, anybody who's new to the show, I spent 23 years in the Army. Okay, I am retired. I am a retired senior non-commissioned officer from the Army. Now, generally speaking, on social media and places like this, I not in the facetious way that Jay just said about us not talking about politics, because we do talk about politics on this show a lot. Why? Because we fucking can. It's our show. We get to talk about what we want. That being said, I generally try and stay out of this. I did watch chunks of Secretary Hegseth's speech, um, and and it's a joke. It's a joke. Okay, he's a joke. It's a joke. Okay, and we're gonna address a couple things that will be said in the chat here in a minute. Let's kind of go through this. The era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings, leadership ends now. The only people who've had to worry about that for the last 15 years are assholes. Okay? You can be a leader and you can make your fucking point without insulting people. Okay? It's not necessary. I spent the majority of my career as a non-commissioned officer. Do you know how many times I had to call someone a derogatory slur? Never. Never. You don't need to do it. The only people who've been griping about this are the ones that use that as part of their leadership style. Okay? Pete Hegseth, you can tell by looking at the motherfucker that he is the type of officer who needs to put people down to make his point. Okay? That is not a valid method of leadership in my opinion. I would say in my learned opinion. And again, the only people who were worried about this were people who were assholes. If you're an asshole, people got upset with you for being an asshole. Okay? So let's start there. No more division, distraction, and gender illusions. Please. The division and distraction, fuck you. That's all you've been since you got put in your position as secretary. Okay? It is a distraction that is causing division in the ranks. Gender delusion, look. I don't even know where to go with that, Jay. Like, this is part of the overarching kind of war on trans people that this whole administration is going through. I quite frankly think that if you're a trans person and you feel like putting on a uniform and signing a fucking contract, we should let you. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I was also thinking about like the females that serve in the military because he kind of keeps going back and saying like very specifically male level. And so I was kind of thinking, like, is he targeting now like females in the military?
Specifically
Which,
females within combat arms. And I went through that
yeah,
transition. When I started my career in combat arms, there were no women in combat arms. It just didn't exist. It was against the law. Okay? There was a law. We did not have women in combat arms positions. They changed the law during the Obama administration. And it took a few years of implementation. Now, I will be the first one to admit, when they first talked about it, I was a junior NCO. And because I had been brought up in combat arms and because I had been brought up in all male units, I didn't know how I felt about it initially. Okay? I was very nervous as a young leader in my 20s when this all happened. I got over it. Okay? There's a quote, and I'm going to try and bring it up, from The West Wing. That he has that I absolutely love. That really kind of fixes it. Okay? And we'll talk about that in a second. Let's kind of run through this. Actually, no. We're going to do this now because this is good.
Hang on. I'm saying.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to the part. So they're having this debate. And this is before this show was made before we started allowing gays in the military. So in the show, they're talking about
Not taking care of your
letting homosexual people serve openly in the military, right? So then the big admiral guy who's a main character, right? It's played by John Amos. He comes in, right?
Sir.
Stand easy, fellas. This Danish for anybody?
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. We're discussing gays in the military, huh?
Yes, sir.
What do you think? I said, what do you think?
Sir, we're here to help the White House form a policy.
I know, I'm asking you what you think.
Sir, we're not prejudiced toward homosexuals.
You just don't want to see them serving in the armed forces.
No, sir, I don't.
Because they pose a threat to unit discipline and cohesion.
Yes, sir.
That's what I think, too. I also think the military wasn't designed to be an instrument of social change.
Yes, sir.
Problem with that is, that's what they were saying about me 50 years ago. Blacks shouldn't serve with whites. It would disrupt the unit. You know what? It did disrupt the unit. The unit got over it. The unit changed. I'm an admiral in the U.S. Navy and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Beat that with a stick.
So that's kind of my view on this, right? Oh, it's going to disrupt the unit. You know what? It did disrupt the unit. The unit got over it. And I think largely with putting females in combat reserves, the units got over it. And it's fine. You can make an argument that you should have a gender-neutral physical fitness test for combat arms. I don't have a specific argument against that, right? If you want a gender-neutral physical fitness training test for combat arms units, that's the one area where I'm like, okay, sure. You know what? You should be able to do 60 push-ups or whatever, right? That's fine. Do gender-neutral PT test. But beyond that, stop it. The beardos thingy, there's a lot of people that have taken advantage of the religious dispensation improperly. That's true. It has happened. I'm Norse pagan. Are you, or do you just want a beard? Right? They're still going to allow religious dispensation for beards for, like I served under a first sergeant who was an Orthodox Jewish person. Right? And under his cover, he wore a yarmulke and he wore a beard because he was an Orthodox Jew. Sikh people serve in the military. That's fine. He's talking about a lot of the guys that get long-term profiles, especially people who are of African-American descent, who get the shaving bumps, which are very, very painful. This is what you're worried about? Honestly, soldiers have been begging for them to just allow beards for years. This is a constant argument with the Army is, why can't we just have beards? Can we just have beards? Like, everybody can have a beard. So the fact that he's making this a big point, again, he's a former major. He's got the good idea fairy. He can shut up. The fat generals, again, he can't make himself feel better without putting other people down. That's his deal, right? He's just an asshole. Okay? Yeah. It's this. You've got this one last note in here. So go ahead and make your last note. We can talk about this next piece.
Yeah.
Which is
in
Trump's thing that he said when he talked to the generals.
Yeah. And something that we talked in pre-show, something that, you know, again, we don't cover on this podcast because we don't cover political stuff at all. So like we wouldn't cover the fact that, like, you know, Trump kind of floated the idea that the National Guard should use cities that are controlled by the Democrats as training grounds in this war against, quote, the enemy from within, which I don't know. Everything about Trump's address, me as a civilian, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, even the whole fact that he was like, okay, like this is a super quiet room, like you guys can clap, like, right, like come on, like clap. If you don't want to clap, like please leave and you'll lose your rank and everything. And even I was able, as a civilian, able to really quickly understand that there is a military code of conduct, maybe that's not the correct term here, but like that prohibits them from actually clapping or, you know, causing any sort of reaction or noise when being addressed in this manner. Is that the correct term, Alex? Like code of conduct?
Yes, there's a code of conduct because so this is the thing that we get confused. Like the military is supposed to be the military is not supposed to be apolitical. It's a political body. It has to be. The military is supposed to be nonpartisan, right? That's the thing, right? The reason you're not allowed to go to partisan political events in uniform is that as a service, the United States military is not a partisan thing, okay? They are supposed to be nonpartisan. It's just that's again. It's the reason Trump likes Hegseth is Trump sees Hegseth in himself, like himself in Hegseth, right? I have to put people down to make myself feel better. I have to be the thing, yeah, and it drives me absolutely nuts, and that's why, right? The code of conduct, you know, dictates that they're not supposed to do that, right? But let's go back to, you know, and so I'm going to end this portion for the YouTube show on this, you know. Hegseth is just doing what Hegseth do. He's focused in all the wrong areas, and what he's really doing is showing his lack of experience and his lack of qualification. Because if this nitpicky bullshit is what you're focused on as Secretary of Defense, you don't understand your fucking job.